I graduated from university with a degree in engineering, and I actually worked in the tech industry for roughly 8 years before getting into SEO or anything related to SEO at all. I had taken a couple of years off from that industry, and I knew Matt from when we used to work in technology. So in 2015, I started a small affiliate website project. And I also took on a couple SEO clients, just doing kind of like full client side SEO for a couple small clients. And then I also started working at Diggity Links. Matt had asked me to kind of be the lead of research and development for the company. This was pretty early on. I think Diggity Links was only operating for maybe like a year at the most or something like that prior to us talking about it. So I really kind of started Diggity Links, like started working with Matt and the company right when they were kind of taking off and getting, the network was growing incredibly every month. We were buying a ton of domains and building them, adding them, just working really hard to kind of get the network in place. Throughout 2015 to now, I mean, there's been so many things that's happened in SEO, like waves of algorithm changes, sites getting de-indexed, other people's PBN networks completely getting shut down. Like a lot of things have happened. So we kind of work together on a lot of the technology that Rank Club still uses today in terms of like how to keep the network safe, how to keep the PBNs effective, how to test them, how to find them. All that stuff kind of started at Diggity Links first. And then we transitioned to a different kind of company. And then since 2018, when it became Rank Club, I've been the CEO kind of operating everyday functions for the company since then.
When I told people I was going to talk to you, they were asking that I should ask you about the numbers. Like, is your network the biggest one out there? What's your market share? So let's assume that there is some market of PBNs. So where are you in that market?
That's a little tough to say because, I've kept up with some of the other PBN vendors. Some of them I know personally, like I've met them in Thailand and I know them. Others I've kind of worked with them, or like maybe early on I was even a customer of other PBN networks. But I can't say that I've ever known the size of anyone else's PBN network, right? Like it's just something that's PBNs in general are pretty elusive business where nobody likes to publish their domain names. Everyone likes to kind of keep things under wrap. I would say that the way that we look at it is we consider ourselves like the premium network in terms of quality and like effectiveness. I've never seen other people publish tests of like making sure that their PBMs work. I've never seen people, writing articles about how the best way to maintain them or and these sort of things. So we kind of consider ourselves as like, I don't know in terms of market share, but more like the premium service when it comes to PBNs. Yeah. So, and then, I've also, as you can imagine, I've looked at thousands of PBN sites, and that's kind of another metric we use to make sure that, we design sites that are, as good or better than generally what you'll see out there. The biggest thing here is that starting in like kind of like in the late 2019, we decided to create the Tier2 network because we saw that, there was a demand from our clients. In the spring of 2020, around April or May, we launched the Tier2 product. And it's been pretty successful since then. So a lot of the questions that you have provided, they have different answers sometimes for Tier 1 and Tier 2. So I've just made some notes to kind of look back, make sure I know, sometimes I'll be talking about Tier 1. And then, most questions I'll usually talk about Tier 1 first, and then Tier 2, Tier 1, and then Tier 2.
Okay, which one is bigger, Tier 1 or Tier 2?
Right now, it's still Tier 1. Yeah. But it's getting pretty close because we are building the Tier 2 network based off of kind of the success it's had this year. We've just been adding more and more domains. And we do also have software on the Tier 2 side that makes sure that link placement is safe. So that's one of the big things that we'll talk about. And some of the questions is like how we have software that we developed to determine which domains we can use for whatever target you want. And then for the Tier 2 network, I mean, it happens almost all in the software, how we decide which PBNs we'll put the links on and how they'll be spread out and make sure the pattern and all that is safe for the client.
Do you suggest that we can build PBNs and make them the first links when I launch a website?
So I think initially when you launch a website, traditionally the first links that you should build are links from your own properties, like social media sites, Twitter sites, Facebook pages, and this sort of thing. When you're beginning out, probably one of your main concerns is building links safely and the right type of links. I would say that after you kind of do those first social profile links, you can move on to links with good SEO value. But I would personally recommend using something like link outreach or guest posts or something a little more white hat in nature to start off, because PBN links are really more specifically known for the power they deliver. And I think it's a little much in the beginning of a site when you're just starting the SEO campaign.
So what about I make those social media links and I use your tier 2 service to build PBNs to those social media?
Right. So that is a great point. So for our tier 2 network, it's kind of specifically designed to link on the second tier. So if you are building links through outreach or guest posts or social media, you can power any of those with our tier 2 product.
Some webmasters, when you build guest post links and those are your first backlinks, they are watching closely and they prohibit doing tier 2 to their posts. So how do I go about that?
Are you saying the some people that provide the guest post links will
Yeah,
be watching this?
yes, they are watching this, and
Mhm.
some of them they say they prohibit doing that kind
Oh,
of
right.
thing.
So, I mean, I think that in that case, since we don't block our links from crawlers, I would just not recommend using our tier 2 product in that if that's the case. It obviously depends on what vendor you're using for guest posts and how you're acquiring those tier 1 links. If that's the case, then I would recommend just kind of holding off on doing all this stuff at a later time when it's a little more safe to do so.
That was supposed to be a later question, but if we touch that, so why don't you block your PBNs from the crawlers?
One of the big goals when we first started creating PBNs and started creating the network was to try to build sites that look as natural as possible. So early on, when I was doing research in building PBNs, I saw that a lot of people were using things such as PBN hosts, shared hosting, where it's very, very cheap and people can host a ton of sites for a reasonable price. We very, very quickly decided not to do this sort of thing, use premium hosts and kind of try to blend in with like the natural internet. So this idea of blocking crawlers and bots is kind of along the same lines. If a normal site on the internet wouldn't block something like Ahrefs or something, like they probably wouldn't even know that this site exists, right? So in theory, if Ahrefs isn't able to access a domain, then maybe there's a reason why. And so we kind of made an early decision to not block any crawlers or bots and keep the sites as natural as possible. And then furthermore, we've actually never seen any case where this negatively affected any of our clients or, as far as we know, our network. So after 5, 6 years of operation, it's never kind of become a problem for anybody.
So why then don't you show, why don't you reveal your websites when I'm buying them, when I'm buying links? You never show the full URL, full domain.
Right. So that's actually not exactly true for our tier 1 product. I believe in our tier 1 product, you select from a list of coded domain names. This is so that if someone's a prospective client, we don't just share the domain names for anybody who's curious about getting links. But I believe for the tier 1 product, we provide the domain name at fulfillment. For tier 2, it's a little different. We don't do it. We think that it's really still just like a safety concern. You know, a lot more people have access. We don't have kind of the same technology or the same filtering process for people using our tier 2 network. So we still keep that private, but the tier 1 service, you will get a fulfillment report with.
When the order is fulfilled, you do provide the links. Just when I'm
Right.
choosing them, I can only make a best guess based on the metrics. By the way, when I get those metrics and I don't know the domains, how do I choose?
I think that the good thing about our service is that we've done a lot of the hard work in terms of choosing the domain for you. We have a consistent process in terms of sourcing the domain. We've tested a lot of different domain sources and we've kind of finally settled in on a process with the domain provider to have a consistent product from them. And then We run this through a proprietary software to make sure that linking patterns are all good and that these domains will be safe for you to use. And then we provide a coded list showing you the metrics that people are interested in, such as referring domain and MOZ metrics, to help people choose the strength of links that they need for their project.
So I'm looking at this list and I'm only starting, and your service is the only one I've ever seen, for example. And I'm looking DR20, like DR30, DR15. How do I choose? So which one should I use?
I think that it kind of depends on, I mean, this is going to be a kind of a common theme along a lot of the answers, but it really depends on your niche and the competitiveness of your niche, you know, how much power you need to deliver. So maybe a good strategy would be to start off with something that's more cost effective in terms of a link, and then to see if you're not able to displace or keep up with the competition, then you can use more powerful links. Or it could be that depending on which anchor text that you're choosing, like if it's a more critical anchor text, then maybe you would choose a link with more RD referring domains or with better metrics because you want to have emphasis on that keyword. There could be different factors as to why you choose medium strength to high strength domains for that particular link.
And you don't provide TF, CF metrics, do you?
No, that's right.
So that's still the point there because why?
I think it was maybe around 2018, early 2019 or something, where we saw that there was a lot of fluctuation in the metrics being provided by Majestic, the TF and CF metric. We saw it like scrambling all over the place for our domains. So obviously that was a little bit odd. And so what we decided to do was to conduct a test. Does this mean that these domains are not useful for linking anymore? And we already have this testing process in-house that we try to isolate variables and test our domains once we acquire them and before we build them out into PBNs. What that study kind of concluded was that these metrics aren't really a reliable way to tell if these domains will be effectively used for link building. So because the fluctuations in the numbers had very, very little meaning on our effectiveness test, we just decided to stop reporting these numbers and to just relay this message to our clients that our sourcing is fine and that these kind of third-party metrics are not really having an effect on them.
Back to the anchors, you mentioned them. What do you suggest? How do I choose the anchors to use in your network or in any PBN?
Right. So like I said, for the tier 1 product, these PBN links are specifically to deliver power and link juice. So naturally, what we think makes the most sense is to pair these links with your most targeted anchor text, your most critical anchor text, things that you're trying to be represented in the SERPs for. That being said, we've also done analysis on the anchor text that our clients use. And in terms of frequency, what we see the most are targeted anchor text, and then kind of topical, like related anchor text, and then branding anchor text in that kind of order of frequency. We don't see it as much miscellaneous or non-useful anchor text for our tier 1 PBN links. For our tier 2 PBN network, what we've seen clients do is use a much more diversified range of anchor text. So something you might see similar on tier 1, kind of if you consider all the backlinks, there'll be some kind of diversified anchor text strategy. And what we see on tier 2 is people use kind of a similar diversified anchor text strategy on tier 2.
So how many of those links do I need? So I've chosen the anchors and everything else. How many should I build?
So for our tier 1 product, again, there's kind of no easy answer, but what we've seen is that you can build a significant amount of links, tier 1 PBN links, as long as they're spaced out and the link velocity is something that's safe and acceptable for your campaign against specifically. We've done some analysis and we've seen, like, on average, our clients will have maybe an orders of 7 to 8 links from our pointing to any one domain, any one client's domain. But in 2020, what we saw was the most amount of concurrently active PBN links sent to any client site was 66. So the range is kind of big. It really kind of just depends on how many you need.
But they are quite costly. So when I buy 60 links, with your network, they like, I need to pay monthly for them. And that can be a big budget sometimes, depending on the metrics I choose. How long should I keep those links?
Okay. Again, this kind of depends on every niche and every SEO campaign is a little different. What we've seen is that this kind of depends on maybe like the turbulence in the SERPs of those niches. So some clients in some niches have kept links for as long as 27 months. So this was specifically like the dating niche. And then other niches like what we've seen in health or entertainment is a bit shorter, on average around 11 months. So the answer kind of obviously depends on how long you see ROI from using these links to be competitive in your SEO campaign and in your niche. But yeah, so the short answer would be kind of as long as you need them. For the tier 2 links, it's a single payment structure for the link purchase. We guarantee that those links will be active, like the PBNs will be up and everything will be good for at least a minimum of 1 year. And then we also guarantee that those links will be on the homepage of those PBNs for a minimum of 3 months. Again, this depends on your niche. What we do is we set numbers to roll off of the homepage of the PBN after a certain number. So your niche, those links could be up for much longer on the homepage. This is for tier 2. Again, for tier 1, one of the things, because you're renting the links and you're paying monthly for them, some things that we've added in terms of our policy to make this the most effective for you is we also have a max outbound link number of 8. So once 8 links are rented from any PBN, we don't rent out any other links from them until a client has decided to cancel. Then we open up space and we have room for other clients. So for tier 1, the way that we control this is to have a maximum outbound link to monitor patterns to make sure that it's safe. And you're guaranteed this for the lifetime that you pay the rent.
So you don't accept everybody into your tier 1 network. Have some conditions before you can choose someone to add.
Sure. Well, really what it is we have terms and conditions. This is for all of our clients. This is for the safety of everyone who uses kind of like a gray hat method like PBN links. In terms of other conditions, it's not really conditions, it's just more of like limited supply. So we open up our network when we have availability across all of our niches, and then we try to kind of limit the number of people accessing the networks in a way that we feel comfortable with.
So it's very hard to manage all this stuff, yeah? Do you have many people who are helping you?
Yeah, so another good thing that we think is a good thing about our service is that for the tier 1 product, we have sales concierge. So it's not something that you would just order online. You would have a representative that would collect some very basic information about your SEO project, help you with pricing, the list of domains that you can use, and then would also just help you best utilize the service. So it's a little bit more of a personal touch, we think, that so many of our clients kind of enjoy.
And I also remember that you were tracking the rankings for the target website and reporting on that sometimes. Oh, I see you've got improvements from our service.
Yeah, this is something that, again, we try to do this for new clients that we've onboarded. We try to keep track of some of the links that they're sending and see if there's any, significant performance that we can kind of feedback to them to show them that our service is working.
Can it be so that I don't see any effects?
Yeah, I think in some cases this can be the case. Again, because SEO campaigns differ and there's a lot of variables. I mean, there probably are ways that you can use building backlinks in a way that's unsuccessful. You can over-optimize keywords. You can do things that make the links ineffective or maybe even affect it in the opposite way that you were trying to go. Another thing would be because niches and projects are different, that the time frame or delay in which the links are effective could also be different. In general, when we test links, we know that they're visible and have some effect between 1 and 2 weeks. But overall, to your campaign, it could be longer, much longer, who knows?
What if I decide to use your PBN links premium service tier 1 on my whitehat website. So for example, someone like my friend gets a client on SEO and they cannot deliver results in time, and they decide to use your service to push it a bit.
I think this is a little bit of a trick question. Purchasing links or otherwise finding backlinks for your website is by definition a gray hat technique. So anybody who is kind of willingly purchasing backlinks for their SEO campaign is operating a gray hat website. If your site now is truly white hat, then I think something like our tier 2 product would make a lot more sense to keep it truly white hat. But if you're buying links from a PBN vendor, then kind of by nature, you've kind of crossed over into gray hat territory.
I do remember you had those terms and conditions, and where you told that I cannot use other PBN providers while I'm using your service. Why do you do that, and how do you track that?
So this one's a little bit more of a nuanced kind of answer. Yeah, so in our terms of service, we don't allow you to build your own PBN network to your target URLs. And we also don't allow you to use other PBN vendors to your target URL while using our service. Obviously, you're free to do that. But if you are renting tier 1 links from us, we don't allow it. And we audit our target URLs, and this is something that's very difficult to keep track of minute by minute, but it's something that we make an effort to audit so that we can keep the network as safe as possible. The nuance here is that, from a kind of overall standpoint, the general answer would be that I simply just don't trust the way that other people build PBNs. There's a lot that kind of goes into it. There's a lot of different things to consider when building a PBN network. And when you build them poorly and create footprints across your PBN network, there is some non-zero opportunity for them to be discovered by Google, grouped together, and then de-indexed or removed from their index. Now, when a money site is kind of identified as using PBN links, what we've kind of theorized or seen, or a mix of both, is that money site will then have all of its backlinks kind of audited through what seems like kind of like a manual process from Google. So once all those backlinks are audited, if you have designed PBNs that are kind of poorly designed, and then we have our sites that are kind of fly under the radar in terms of being identified by themselves, but now they've kind of all been grouped in as the backlinks to a money site that uses PBN links, well, then that can potentially threaten our network to be lose indexing, which is effectively that the sites become non-operational for us. And that would also affect our other clients' SEO campaigns. So we just kind of think the whole process is something that we don't really want to deal with. And we feel better of people just using our PBN network if they choose to use PBNs, kind of exclusively, I guess.
Did it happen to you often, the indexing and all that kind of stuff?
I would say that in the 6-year history, it hasn't happened. I think we've been kind of blessed to not have it happen more than what we've heard kind of happens in the industry. There have been periods where you see kind of a normal loss of maybe 0.5 to 1% of your network a month of a site losing indexing. There have been small waves that kind of have happened throughout time, but luckily, for the most part, we've protected the network from having big problems with de-indexing.
Some of the people say that Google now doesn't de-index websites from PBNs, they just don't count them in anymore.
Right. Well, I would say that there's kind of a two-pronged answer, that we still do constant testing of our domains. So we know that the effectiveness really hasn't changed over this kind of period of time when people have theorized that PBNs or domains are not being de-indexed anymore, but they're just not having no value. And then another thing is we've also seen kind of the steady trend of randomly losing a site here or there a month or things of that nature. So we know that the activity, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the nature of de-indexes hasn't really changed that much over the time that I've been operating PBNs. It's just been pockets of activity here and there, but really the overall process hasn't changed much, nor has our testing.
Okay. How do you test your network? So you've mentioned a couple of times you do. So what do you do?
Sure. So we kind of developed this in-house process where we've tried to find target URLs that have as many isolated variables as possible, meaning there's not a content refresh, there's not other link building going on, and their position in the SERP should be fairly static. We isolate these sites and then we send a test link from our PBN to see if we can manipulate search terms that should essentially be fairly easy to manipulate considering everything else is isolated. And then if we can see kind of a consistent positive movement, which I think we normally publish this in our marketing posts to kind of from our test results to show that these domains currently actively still have effectiveness from every month that we kind of market and open our service. We've done testing. We know that the domains are working as they should.
Do you use your network for your own projects?
I currently don't. I mean, I don't run any projects right now outside of Rank Club. It keeps me pretty busy. So there have been times in the past where we have done kind of like more private PBN building for clients who've wanted dedicated parts of our network and where we've kind of arranged agreements. But outside of that, our network is being used predominantly by our clients.
How many links do you sell a year?
I don't know if I have the exact statistic on hand. We did recently publish
Tier2, yeah.
A blog post with a lot of data that we collected at the end of the year. I think that's a really interesting blog post that can kind of give a lot of insight into how tier 1 and tier 2 PBN link building has been in 2020.
And the numbers there, they refer to tier 2 only, or do they refer to tier 1 as well?
The blog post kind of talks about tier 1 first, and then talks about our tier 2 product, which we launched.
Because you mentioned that you sold, I don't remember, I think 6,000 or something like that of tier 2, but there's no mention of tier 1, I guess. It's like something.
For our tier 2 product, in 3 quarters, we saw a total of 10,738 tier 2 links being built from our network. For tier 1, it's probably a little different, a little trickier to quantify since these are rental links. We may build them, they may stay up for a month, they may stay up all year. The number kind of varies or is a little bit different. But yeah, that's the number for our tier 2 product, which we launched in early May.
So is it a good business? Do you like it? Is it profitable?
I mean, I think it's a great business. It's a tool that I think that I've seen consistently used in SEO campaigns since I first started doing SEO. It's a product that I used when I was first starting off doing SEO. So I think the fact that I've used it and I kind of know the effectiveness of it, leads me to think that it's a good product and a good business to have. It's also a very difficult and tough business to manage with things that you've already brought up in this interview, questions about, if competitors will kind of know that you use PBNs and then try to attack either you or those PBNs, with fighting off constantly trying to develop new technology to keep the PBN network safe and effective, the effectiveness, the auditing of clients. So, it's definitely not the easiest thing to manage a PBN network and keep everything safe for everyone to use. But in terms of the product itself, I think it's a great product.
How much time do you spend working on this product yourself?
Myself. I mean, I've been lucky throughout this process of working with Diggity Links and Rank Club to have built a really great team. We have teams from research and development to quality control, publishers, builders. We have a bunch of great people that work at Rank Club to kind of make sure that everything runs smoothly. I like to just think of myself as someone who helps everyone else perform their jobs well. Just to summarize, we've been operating tier 1 PBN links from around 2014. Tier 1 PBN linking, or PBN linking in general, seems to be a growing trend. We saw a sales increase in terms of tier 1 from 2019 to 2020 of an increase of 8.23%. the tier 2 product before it was released was a product that was pretty high in demand. We had a lot of our clients asking us if we had a tier 2 solution, something that's more low cost, something that's single payment. We worked pretty hard to build a very reliable tier 2 network. And as soon as it was launched, as I kind of mentioned, there's been really good success with it. We're continuing to build that network to accommodate this business in the future for tier 2 linking.
What do you see the dynamics? Is the market growing? So the demand on PBNs growing, on PBN links, or is it the same? And do those PBN links become more costly? Does it cost more compared to when you were just beginning? Did the prices rise?
I would say that in general, PBN usage has been fairly consistent over the years. I mean, it's been a technique that I've seen that people have used consistently over the years. In terms of their demand and popularity, I think that kind of sometimes fluctuates with maybe trends, what people think are, since there's always so many changes in SEO in terms of algorithmically and technique wise, people kind of shy away from certain techniques. But just kind of looking at that data that I mentioned from 2019 to 2020, we see that they're still used incredibly widely for certain purposes. In terms of the cost of operating PBNs, yeah, the sourcing and build out of the PBNs is definitely probably one of the most expensive parts of it. The domain prices also fluctuates with demand, as you would expect. So as it becomes more scarce, or as you fine tune kind of your sourcing process or requirements, it makes it much more difficult to get domains at a cheap price. So there is some kind of premium to be paid depending on your own process for sourcing those domains.
Just because I was talking to Colin previously to you, and he told that the prices on expired domains, they rise considerably, like twice compared to maybe even 2 years ago. So it would be logical to assume that PBN links also would cost more now compared to like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I've noticed that there, like I said, there are times when the demand is just greater than the supply of domains that can be effectively used as PBNs. In those times, it's more expensive to source domains. Luckily, what we've done is we've always kind of expanded our network, even in times when certain parts of our network weren't being utilized fully. We kept those domains, we kept them hosted, and we found other ways to use the domains and kind of keep that cost of sourcing domains low, so that we don't have to kind of give up domains when we're not using them and then resource them when we need them. This also keeps the domains more consistent in terms of their effectiveness, because we've tested them and we've tested them throughout. So we know that they're kind of keeping that effectiveness.
Do you think there will be times when PBN links stop working? No longer used for SEO, you cannot utilize them.
I mean, that's a tough one. I don't know if that will ever happen. Technology or theory wise, I'm pretty confident that I will know if it does happen. I'll find out. I'll be one of the first to know. So I think that it'll be quite a while before the technology of search kind of surpasses PBN links. But that's just purely my opinion at this point.
Do you plan to work with PBNs all your life?
No, I mean, I think one of the goals for Rank Club is to constantly look for the products that are in demand, look for ways that we can help people in the SEO industry continue to run successful SEO campaigns. There was a time when, I kind of played with having a product that provides content for this type of use. I just didn't think that was the right direction to go at the time, but I will constantly kind of look for the different type of link building opportunities that people are interested in that kind of fit in the model that we have and in the philosophy we have in terms of providing the links.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I appreciate your time as well, and thank you for having me on. It's really really great time to chat.
It was very nice to see you again.